Welcome in to another edition of Protecting Military Families with Chris Brochu right here on 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk. Chris, it's another Sunday, and we're going to give people information that they need. A lot about the VA today. We talked about that a little bit in the first episode a couple weeks back. You can go back, find that on your website, by the way, a stream version, brochulaw.com. Our guy Justin with Nova Productions hooking us up with that. You can also find it on WOKV.com. But Chris, the VA is what we're going to start with today. Just give it a little overview because I think most people have heard about the VA, but just in general, what is the VA? How does it work? How do you guys work with it?
Casey, good morning. It is, it's a whole different language, and most people that encounter VA claims or they're going through the process, it may be their only interaction, and the VA has evolved into a federal organization that does a lot of good things for veterans. There are some areas that we try to assist with where maybe veterans experience certain issues or more common issues. And I think primarily, it never hurts to have a second opinion, and we'll talk about that later in the show, but primarily it's understanding VA claims and understanding your rights to appeals. We aren't going to get into a whole lot of the nitty-gritty details of I have a back problem, I have sleep apnea, I have tinnitus, because those will all be individual to veteran claims. But the important thing is to understand how the process works, what your rights are, and if you don't think that you got a fair shake, if you don't think that you received the benefits that you're owed, what your rights are and benefits. So
absolutely. Like you mentioned, a lot of conversation later in the show about this is a second opportunity. This is the opportunity for you to have a second look of eyes, a second overlook of everything that you could potentially have, and Chris will explain how that will work later in this show. Chris, for people that missed the first episode, and by the way, if you missed it and you want to go back and listen to it, I told you how to do that, but wait, don't do that now. Wait until we're done with this episode, then go back. But I'll have Chris explain something he explained in the first episode. Any random lawyer cannot just go work with the VA, right? You have to become accredited to work with the VA. You have done that. How did you do it, and how important is that accreditation that you have?
It's the stepping stone to filing a VA claim and representing someone. So essentially, I don't know what the statistics are for the entire state of Florida, but I can tell you in Jacksonville, I think there are less than 40 VA accredited attorneys. There are also claims agents that are accredited by the VA, and then there are veteran service organizations. Tons of different types of veteran service organizations, but primarily the only people that can assist service members with filing claims are individuals or entities that are licensed with the VA. So to get my VA accreditation, I became a licensed attorney in the state of Florida and submitted an application, went through that process. Once I received my VA accreditation, I was afforded the opportunity to get a PIV card, which would allow me to obtain any of the medical records, right? So anytime that I have a veteran that hires me and associates me with their appeal or their supplemental claim or whatever it is, the VA on their end knows once we submit a 2122A in a fee agreement, they know that I'm associated, and now they've given me the key to that veterans' medical records. And that helps with the process. Now, sometimes, if you can't gain access that way, you've got to go the old school way of a FOIA request, the Freedom of Information Act. That takes a bit longer. But
so you just mentioned real quick, 2122A, those are documents that you need. Can you just explain those a little bit further, just so if somebody's listening, they can, catch on with that?
Sure. The 2122A is the document that you file with the VA that says that you are hiring someone to assist with you. So when they associate with a VA accredited attorney, that's the document that we submit to the VA telling them that, this is the veteran that we represent.
Sure. Okay. So just that we got that cleared up, let's go on to the VA disability claims like we touched on here just a minute ago, but let's get into it now a little bit. Obviously, you just talked about it in Florida. That's where you are. That's where you practice law. But is Florida the only state that you can help people with VA disability claims, or is that a broader area you can do because it's the VA?
If it was a traditional claim in state or federal court, then you are allowed to practice in the state where you're licensed, or you can have local counsel, and there are certain mechanisms that you can do to practice there. VA claims are procedural in nature because they're administrative. So administrative law is different. I mean, there are procedures in every type of civil case, but administrative law is different because you're submitting it to the VA, which is a governmental body, as opposed to the court system. Now, it may end up at the Court of Appeals or in front of a judge, but most claims will be adjudicated at that government agency. So what we're doing is we're evaluating what claims we can appeal. We're evaluating which claims maybe the veteran didn't include on their initial filing. And just a friendly reminder, attorneys accredited with the VA are unable to assist in filing initial claims for payment, right, for direct payment, because attorneys based, on our current laws are only allowed to assist with veteran claims after the initial filing. So all of the clients that come to me have all already submitted their initial claim. And if they haven't, then obviously we point them in the right direction. But a lot of times they'll have received assistance from their veteran service organization or something to help them file that initial claim, and they're dissatisfied with the rating, or they don't think that they're getting the benefits they deserve.
If you think you have one of those claims, CASE, C-A-S-E, at brochulaw.com, B-R-O-C-H-U law.com. You can get in touch with Chris and he can help you out with that. In previous episodes, Chris, we've talked about how you operate with your law firm. You're not getting paid unless the client gets paid, and there's a win there. But when it comes to VA claims and dealing with the VA, is that how you still operate, or do things have to change due to the procedures you have to take with the VA?
Still on a contingency fee basis. All of the claims, 20% contingent fee on us increasing the rating or getting the veteran higher benefits than they're currently getting, right? So if we've got somebody at 0 and we get them to 50%, we would get 20% of the back pay or the time that it took to get them from the effective date of the, and again, that determines, this is not a one size fits all, so that determines on when the VA determines the effective date is, but essentially we get back pay from the effective date until the time that we get an increase. And if we never get an increase, then again, it's contingent. So you don't owe us anything. There's no fee unless we win. And we'll continue that process. Even if you get an increase, then we'll see if there's something that we believe they missed and get a higher decision review or figure out if there's something more we can do.
Absolutely. When you're at work and someone calls 904-201-1771, the phone rings, how often do you have a scenario where somebody says, I hired a lawyer to help me with my VA disability claims, but I found out that they couldn't actually help me, and then they come to you? Do you have a situation where people go someplace and then end up in your hands? Is that something that happens often, since you are accredited and other lawyers, not everybody is in that point?
Attorneys that aren't accredited will tell veterans and military families, please contact an attorney that's accredited, or maybe this isn't an area that they practice. And that's how I receive some of them. Others will come from individuals that filed claims on their own behalf, right? So they've located the documents, they have submitted them to the VA. The VA comes back and the veteran doesn't agree with the decision that the VA came out with. There's another type where there are these interesting companies, we'll say, where they're not accredited and they're not a veteran service organization. So they're not individually accredited to help with claims, and they're not accredited as an organization, but they, and I'll air quote for those listening on the radio, they assist with VA claims. What they're doing is they're charging you a flat fee. I don't know how much it is. Some of them charge $1,000, and they're arming you with the knowledge, right? I mean, at the end of the day, this is a veteran that's going through this process for the first time. They may or may not want to shell out that type of money and navigate this complex process on their own. So I don't know why anyone would use them, because again, they're not putting their neck on the line saying that they can help with these, because if they were, they'd get accredited. They're just saying, hey, we can help you file your own. But those exist. And then there are certain veteran service organizations that do a better job than others. So there are some that are really great, and there are some that hand you the form and say,
here you go.
Yeah, let's get it, fill this out, give it back to me, we'll submit it. If you're somebody that, you've been working for a while, or you don't think that your VSO is fighting for you like they should, or you're in a position where you're not happy with the representation you're receiving, you can always call someone and figure out if there's a way to get a second opinion, and if there's something more that you can do. And again, if you're one of those people that your instructions are, yep, that's denied, no, there's nothing we can do, and that's as simple as they put it, or here's your claim, fill this out, or here's your appeal, fill this out, or here's your claim form in the next step of the process, fill this out, and you haven't received any instruction or advocacy or really any assistance, those are the types of people that we help too, and we get those calls all the time.
Absolutely. This is 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk, and we are talking about the VA, and we are protecting military families with Chris Brochu. Chris, I want to go back to some of those companies that aren't accredited with the VA, but maybe portray that they are. But before we do that, you mentioned that there are some companies that, in terms of helping with some of the VA forms and stuff like that, and then there are some that just hand over the form, like you said. How different, like when, I think everybody has a different envision of like a form, right? But it's the same thing. It's a piece of paper that you fill out. Some are more detailed than others. How, in terms of this document, is it something that someone can do on their own, or is it really smart to have assistants filling it out to make sure you do it correctly?
I think it really depends on what you're looking for. Veterans are highly capable people. Their spouses, majority of the time, are heavily involved in a lot of these processes as well. So it really depends on what you're looking for. I mean, a lot of times, families find it beneficial to get somebody that sees these claims all the time, because they're saying to themselves, well, if we need help with this, why don't we hire somebody that does this for a living, right? If this is their first time ever dealing with it. So I think it really just comes down to, again, the thing that we always talk about, 100% of nothing is still nothing. So if you're not getting the benefits that you think you're owed, what's the harm in trying? But yeah, occasionally you hear of somebody that says, you know what, I want to keep that all to myself, but are they getting the benefits that, top dollar that they're entitled to? I don't know. That's a question for them and their family. But I like our model as an attorney, as a VA accredited attorney in a law firm. And the reason why is I don't necessarily always like free, to be candid with you. I don't. I mean, if I said to you, hey, here's your private this, you can pick from whoever you want, or you can have this free something, but hey, pick a name out of the hat and here you go. Right? I'd kind of like to have my choice. It might cost me a little bit more, right? In terms of an attorney, It costs you more on the back end, but only if we're successful. But again, there are certain things in life that cost money. And to me, again, I mean, this is for veterans and their families to decide, but if somebody gets me something that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten, and to get it, I had to pay them on the back end, only if they're successful.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a no-brainer. Because at the end of the day, if I'm somebody that's working with a company that gets paid either way, whether I'm at 0% or 100, they're getting paid the same amount. They're going home with the same amount in their pocket. I don't know. I think that's a good question for military families. And again, I don't want to put any of these VA accredited entities on blast. That's not what we're here to do. The veterans know what organizations help more than others. But the point is, if you're looking for a free review and you want to know if your military family is leaving benefits on the table, happy to provide a free review and second opinion.
Absolutely. Let's go a little deeper on that, because I like your point. Free is good at Costco. Like, the free samples are good. But when you're talking about...
Cheese is great.
I mean, right? So there are some times where free is better, but this is not one of those situations where you need to make sure that you're getting the best possible person to represent you. So you brought up a little bit, but hiring someone that is VA accredited and does VA claims, why is it overall worth the money? Other than, like, it makes sense on the surface. We just talked about that. But, like, diving deep into it, why is it worth the money to hire somebody that knows what they're doing?
The part about hiring a VA accredited attorney versus trying to do it yourself, or going with a VA accredited attorney versus a VSO?
The second one. Going with a VA accredited attorney instead of the VSO.
And, most of the time, a veteran will start working with a VSO. So maybe they've had success, and maybe that VSO has gotten them the benefits that they believe they're entitled to. So a lot of the times, if that's the case, then the analysis stops there. But if for whatever reason they're not getting the help and assistance that they think, they're not getting the advocate that they thought they were getting when they signed up, then that would be, I think, in my mind, the main question of what. If you already know what you're getting from here, right, what you've already signed up for, and you've already seen what you're getting or not getting a free review and hearing what another, someone who's also equally as accredited can do, and they'll give you a free review and make sure that everything's up to snuff. I think that's worth it in and of itself. But yeah, I mean, ultimately it comes down to, are you only looking for free, or are you looking for somebody that's going to only get paid if they're successful, right? If they don't get you paid, they don't get paid.
Right. So it's really it's a no risk situation, right? To even contact you, because to your point, you're not going to get paid unless they get paid. So either everybody's getting paid or nobody's getting paid. So it seems risk free. Let's go to the second part.
The only risk I will say is you'd just be out. You'd be out your time, because you still have some time involved. But yeah, we're going to advance all the costs on your behalf, and obviously there's no fee unless we win. So
yeah, absolutely. Let's go back to the second part of that question you asked me, but now I'm going to ask you it. Why is it maybe more valuable to hire somebody than try to do it yourself, in terms of the VA hiring an accredited attorney versus trying to fill out the form and do everything on your own?
If you were going to pay one of those companies up front to do it yourself, I mean, what is the difference truly going to be between doing that and just paying someone to do it for you, right?
Right.
And here's the kicker. The only way you're paying someone to do it for you is if they win. That other company, you're paying win, lose, or draw. With us, the only way we get paid is if we get an increase, if we get you something that you don't already have. So I think that is the overarching theme here, is that, what is it that your military family needs and wants, and ultimately, are you leaving benefits on the table that either you know about or you didn't know about? And again, it's not to discredit a veteran that wants to, forge ahead alone. It's a valiant thing to do, but I just think that if you're not having any success going that way, or maybe it's something that you necessarily don't want the red tape or extra stress in your life, maybe you consider calling a VA accredited attorney. I don't know. It's a question for your own military family. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's touch on this one last thing before we hit a break. We've talked a little bit about it, not in a ton of detail, but there are companies that sell VA disability material that aren't accredited with the VA. How does that work? Like, what are the red flags you should look for if you're looking at this material and say, maybe I should not do that?
Well, I think anytime that a company is willing to give you all this advice, but they're not willing to put their name, right?
Yeah.
Name with something. Mm-hmm. In my mind, it's kind of this, it's like when you get all this free advice, but somebody's never done it, right? Like occasionally I'll have someone tell me, well, if I was a business owner, I'd do it like this. Well, I listen to people that have been small business owners, right? I don't care what it is. You could be running any small business and I want to hear from you because I'm a small business owner too, right? But if I'm hearing advice from somebody that's never had my issues, right? They've had their own issues. Most of the companies that do that, they're like, well, I got myself to 100%. Well, that's great. I'm proud of you for doing that. But does that mean you can get every veteran to 100%? Why don't you get accredited? I mean, that's the bottom line in my eyes is like, just get accredited, do it the legit way. I get that you can be legit handing out information, right? There's nothing unlawful about that unless you cross that line. But in my mind, if you're gonna hone in on a certain area, especially something as important as VA benefits, I just think that you should have to go through the process like everyone else. And I don't think you should get paid for handing out information that somebody could probably Google if they wanted to do it themselves.
Sure. Absolutely. So that's a little bit about the VA and kind of what you can do and what Chris can provide for you. But on the other side of this break, it's going to be super important, the information Chris is going to give you in terms of just because a doctor or somebody tells you something, it's not always the right answer. You can have an opportunity to have a second chance, a second set of eyes on anything you've been told, and Chris is going to explain how that works on the other side of this break. This is 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Protecting Military Families with Chris Brochu right here on 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk. We talked a lot about the VA in the first block. We're going to continue to do that here in this segment of the show. But if you missed the first segment, after this is over, you can go back, WOKV.com, and find the first half of the show. Really good information in there. A lot of good information still to come. So don't go do that just yet. Wait and hear what Chris has to say in this segment. You might get your questions answered and then go back if you still haven't. And if you still have questions at that point, you can email him at case, C-A-S-E, at brochulaw.com, spelled B-R-O-C-H-U law.com. You can also go back and watch a video version of the show on Chris's website, brochulaw.com. That is thanks to our guy, Justin, at Nova Productions. So, Chris, before the break, I teased this a little bit, but it's something that you're pretty much going to build your brand on for the rest of the time that you practice law. And that is protecting military families' second opinion. And there's a lot of things that are told to military families, told to anybody really, and you pretty much have to take it for what it is. But what you're trying to do and what you're trying to get across to people is, wait a minute, there's more than just what someone tells you. So explain to everybody listening how you can help them maybe get a better understanding or a different perspective on what's happening and what they've been told.
Yes, the part in Waterboy where everything that mama says is gospel, it should disappear with this episode because in my mind, if I was looking at name the most serious thing in anyone's life, civilian or military, and somebody gave me advice, denial, hey, this is all you're ever going to get, it's not that I would not believe them, but I probably want a second opinion, right?
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, do you just take that information and go home and call it a day, or is there something that you can do to make sure they got it right?
Absolutely. So in terms of, obviously I gave you the example of like, a doctor situation where you may be told you have a terminal illness, but, maybe double check on that. But so we've got the doctors, but what else fits in this second opinion that you'll look at? Is it just medical, or what else can people come to you and say, hey, I really would like to take a second look at this?
I think that the medical example is a really good one. And although finances aren't on the same level or the same importance as someone's personal health, right? Obviously, terminal cancer or terminal illness would be the worst case scenario, but somebody in that scenario would likely get a second opinion, right? Not because they disagree with their doctor, but maybe they've got somebody that they want to see. Maybe there's another treatment. Maybe there's something they haven't tried yet, right? So when I look at military families' legal rights and benefits and the questions that I receive, a lot of times they've had help from other places and they're just frustrated. I mean, they're not getting anywhere and they want a second opinion. And that is why we've built this Protecting Military Families Second Opinion at case@brochulaw.com, is because the VA's opinion that you cannot get a higher rating, or the VSO's opinion that there's nothing more that you can do, maybe it's right. But you know what? Maybe it is something that you should get a second opinion on. And that's why all of our second opinions, our consultations are always free. Our second opinions are free. We're happy to review any of these denials, decisions, anything where you've been told, hey, this is the end of the line. There's nothing more that you can do. There's nothing more that we can do. This is it. Because what you may find is there might be other benefits or other rights that you're leaving on the table that you had no idea about. So if you served in the military after October 7th, 2001, maybe there's a type of claim that you fit into under TSGLI. That's the Traumatic Injury Rider of Service Member Group Life Insurance. Maybe there is something that you can do about your tinnitus or hearing loss if you fall into that time frame of the 3M litigation. Maybe there's something that you can do with a potential terrorism claim if it was within that statute of limitation. There are so many different types of federal codes and regulations and laws that apply to service members that don't apply to civilians, and apply to veterans that don't apply to civilians, and apply to military families that don't apply to civilian families, that it may be useful just to get a second pair of eyes on it.
Absolutely. And again, just want to say that you can get a free review of your benefits if you're a military family from Chris. Again, it is free. So you just need to reach out to him and he will look at your benefits and what you have and review it for you for free. So there's a part about that I want to bring up, but I've heard you say this date a couple times. October 7th of 2001, right? That's the date that you've mentioned a couple times in terms you can go back to that point. What is the significance of that day?
Absolutely. Before we get to October 7th, 2001, though, Casey, I just want to clarify one thing. Mm-hmm. So when I say free review, the review is free. The investigating, the reviewing documents, having a discussion about it, that part's all free. But if we decide to work together, obviously at that point in time, you're not a client until we enter into a contingent fee retainer agreement, and you're not a client until you and I decide to work together. And obviously, if we do decide to work together, then that's on a contingency fee basis. We only get paid if you get paid, no fee unless we win. And obviously, we advance all the costs on your behalf. But I just wanted to be clear on that. It's obviously not free, but the review is free. If we determine that there's nothing more that we can do as a firm, that review is completely free, that second review. So thank you so much for that, Casey. And the October 7th, 2001 date is important because TSGLI was enacted in December of 2005, and it's retroactive to October 7th, 2001. So right at the start of the war in Afghanistan up through present day, Traumatic Injury Rider of Service Member Group Life Insurance, TSGLI, is available to service members that were paying SGLI premiums, were involved in a traumatic event, and within 2 years of that traumatic event, experienced a qualifying loss. All of these terms are defined under federal statute, so they're very kind of technical, and we can get into some of those. Again, every TSGLI case is different, but that's the importance of that date. And if you serve between October 7th, 01 and present day, red flag, red flag, red flag, you may be entitled to benefits that you don't even know about.
Wow. Okay, so I want to get back to that in a second, but this kind of goes in terms of the length. And you mentioned to me the statute of limitations with the VA is it's forever. So any point in time with the VA, you can go back, or is that not necessarily the case?
Yeah, that's probably, it's not exactly. So it is, you are able to, or you have the opportunity to reopen a VA claim at any time. If you think that your benefits should be increased, or let's say the VA came to you and said, you know what, we've got to bring you in and do another medical review, and oh, by the way, your benefits are now being decreased, right? That happens, right? You have these periodic evaluations where you could get your benefits taken away or decreased. So those things occur, but the VA does have one statute of limitation, and that is you have 1 year from the date that your effective date to submit a claim, to submit a supplemental claim, to submit any of the documentation to continue with your claim. So it's you have to have a continuous claim, and if you go beyond that 1 year, then essentially you're starting over. So you can't get back pay. So some of these claims you could fight for years and years and years and years and years, right? I mean, there are some out there that have been going on a long time. That would be a continuous claim. So they're just continuing fighting that. And if they ever get to, as long as it was filed from the effective date for what they're arguing, the veteran would get all of that in back pay if they were successful. But let's say it's beyond the 1 year, right? Let's say you filed a VA claim in 2014, you got your rating, name it, and you never did anything with that. You get your rating and you go home. You could still give me a call and we'll still review it for free, and we could still submit, if you had the ability, we could still submit a claim to get you an increase. And again, if we aren't successful, no fee unless we win. We only get a percentage of the back pay from the date that we started helping you, that effective date when we reopen the claim. So there's not technically a statute of limitation like, an auto accident, for instance, in the state of Florida, from 4 years of the date of that accident. If you never file a lawsuit in the state of Florida, your case would be time barred. You'd never be able to bring it again. There is a statute of limitation with VA claims, but you are able to reopen it. It just may not be continuous.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
It does. This is 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk. We are talking a lot about the VA benefits, everything you need to know about the VA with Chris Brochu right now. And if you are maybe someone whose parent or sibling was in the military and you're listening right now and you heard VA and it clicked in your head like, oh, I know what that is, but I don't fully know what that is. This is information that you need or your family member needs. So go back and get it on the website, WOKV.com. Get it on Chris's website, brochulaw.com, a video version of the show. And most importantly, if you have information that you want Chris to look at, case, C-A-S-E, at brochulaw.com, B-R-O-C-H-U law.com. Chris, you mentioned it a couple minutes ago now, but benefits that people don't even know exist. Is something that would be covered under your military family second opinion, right? You can look and see, hey, you might have been missing that. So if that does fit in, is that something that happens often? Is that a case you've seen happen where it's like, hey, I found something that you didn't know you were entitled to?
It could be an individual that's a veteran or their spouse or military family encounters an issue with, name a military area, let's say VA disability, and I look at it and I say, okay, service member served from this state to this state, and I look at their medical records and I say, wow, they had this significant surgery at this point in time. They may qualify for TSGLI, but it depends on a few things. Was there a traumatic event? Did the qualifying loss occur within 2 years, right? That's all part of the process. So there are benefits that, and benefits being, could be monthly, could be lump sum, right? TSGLI up to $100,000 per claim. But then there are also areas, where you've got benefits, but maybe there are contracts that you've entered into that are unlawful, right? And that doesn't mean, this is not how to get out of paying your bills, folks. This is about, you are in a desperate time and a company preys on veterans, preys on service members. And this particular example that I'm about to give is only for service members and active duty, right? Active duty military and their spouses and certain dependents. Right. But the Military Lending Act, that would cover certain financial instruments, payday loans, pawn shop loans, credit cards, certain types of automobile loans if they included things in the purchase and sale agreement that didn't include the purchase of the vehicle. So those are things where that may not be a benefit, but maybe you're on the hook right now for a payday loan with a completely usurious or unlawful interest rate that you had no idea was unlawful when you entered into it. What we can do is we'll review those contracts for free. We'll make sure that company is complying with federal law. And if we find out that they're not, we can try to get you out of that agreement. That's part of the federal statute. We can get the contract rescinded from its inception. We can get your premiums reimbursed. The other party would be on the hook for our attorney's fees and costs. Those are examples of some of the things. So,
absolutely, Chris. How often, when you are reviewing this information that you're given from military families, how often do you find something that they didn't know about, or you find something after a second opinion that actually it turns out wasn't correct? Like, how often is something actually wrong that needs to be righted by somebody that you end up finding?
Most of the time it involves a military family that knows something's off, right? They've got a hunch that something's wrong. And that's why they're calling, as they're just like, you know what, I've heard from, maybe it was a military coworker or another military family member, or maybe they've, researched it on their own that, I don't think this company is shooting me straight. I don't think that, this benefit is should be denied, or whatever the scenario is. And I think that most of the time, the military family or their spouse or the veteran or the service member, they know that something's up, but maybe they don't know the full extent of it. And that's why it starts out with a call of, hey, is this legitimate? Is this debt okay? Is this, benefit? Is this all I'm entitled to? And, hey, this life insurance was denied. Is this correct? And from there, it evolves into, oh, wow, I never knew that this company couldn't do that or shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think something's up and you have a hunch, as my wife always says, when you have a hunch, you're probably right. I don't know about that, but at least not in her case. But if you have a hunch, you need to contact Chris, and he will look at it for you. Chris, we're going to change topics here in just a second, something we talked about in the first show. But what we just talked about, a second opinion for military families, is so important. So before we change topics, if there's anything else you want to get across to the listener in terms of that, the second opinion that you will take, go ahead and let them know now before we go ahead and change topics.
If you are listening to this and you are dissatisfied with your current representation for your benefits, VA disability, if you think that you are on the hook for a loan that you think is predatory, or they failed to disclose something, or the interest rates are extremely high, or you believe that you had a traumatic event that may qualify, or some situation where your life insurance was denied, we offer a second opinion. We're happy to provide the second opinion review for free. That review is free no matter whether we move forward or not. If we decide to move forward and work together, that would require us to enter into a contingent fee retainer agreement. That would, be the start of the representation. The only way we get paid is if we get you paid, no fee unless we win. We advance all costs, on behalf of our military families. So
absolutely. And if you think you're one of those, definitely email him Case, CASE, at brochulaw.com, spelled BROCHU. Chris, we talked about in the first episode, go back and listen to it on your website, brochulaw.com, or on WOKV.com. We talked a little bit about something you were working on in terms of a service member who contacted you needing help with a lease agreement. You said you kind of have an update on that you can give out. So obviously with what you can say, what has happened with that case? How has it kind of played out since we talked on that first episode?
Service member called me, was shipped off to boot camp, and then once he was at boot camp, his family worked through the rest of it with me. But essentially, the service members in our country are protected by certain federal housing laws, and there's one that prohibits, in certain scenarios, a company from, restraining a service member in a lease, right? Keeping that service member bogged down in that lease. And in this particular scenario, the housing complex had entered into an agreement. The college student who was a service member entered into the military, received orders to go to boot camp after he had already entered into the lease agreement, and then notified, he gave the orders to the apartment complex, and the complex told him, no way, we're not letting you out. That's when he came to me, and the update is the apartment complex has decided that they would like to forgo a lawsuit, and they've now canceled his lease agreement. So that was some good news.
Yeah.
Probably the best news of the week. So
yeah, that's good news, something you were working on that got done. So if you are in a similar situation as that, Chris will be able to help you out. You send the email to case@brochulaw.com, and he will work on that for you. Just like that, Chris, another episode is in the books. But real quick before we're out of here, I think it's super important what we're talking about here with the VA. Just one more time, stress to the people, if they have something that they don't think is right, what should they do to get in contact with you, and how can you help?
Protecting Military Families Second Review. We always provide a free consultation. Send us, all of the stuff that you want us to review related to your military rights and benefits. We'll give you a free second review, tell you if there's something that we think you're leaving on the table. And at the very least, at least then you have the peace of mind knowing that you didn't leave something on the table that you had no idea about. So if you have anything, case@brochulaw.com.
Absolutely. You can get at him right there. That's going to do it for another episode of Protecting Military Families with Chris Brochu. If you missed any of the last hour, WOKV.com, on Chris's website, brochulaw.com. There you can see a video version of me and Chris talking to each other, thanks to our guy Justin from Nova Productions putting that on. If you're a business professional, you need some video, you need some photo, anything that can help you improve whatever it is you're working on, you can get at Justin, novaproductionsjax.com, and he will hook you up. He's the best in the business. So get at him if you need the help. Until next week, again, go back and listen to the episodes, get the information you need, and reach out to Chris, case@brochulaw.com if you need him. If you need me, I'll be on ESPN 690. You probably don't need me. But anyway, that's where I will be. We will talk to you next Sunday morning. This has been Protecting Military Families with Chris Brochu on 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk.